Okay, Haribo. Welcome to the Ahankara Party, Class 7. The brave souls who've made it for the 7th round of Ahankara bashing. Here we go. Okay. So today we're going to do a review of last class. We're going to talk about the Ahankara characteristic of competitive. And we're going to talk about 10 signs that your friend is secretly competing with you. Happens a lot. And then we're going to do a practical exercise. Okay? Okay. So the review from last week. We were talking about criticism. Remember last week? And John became in the hot seat. So the definition of criticism is the expression of disapproval of someone or something on the basis of perceived faults or mistakes. That's an interesting definition, right? Because it's like perceived faults or mistakes. That means you're seeing it through the lens of your samskaras and your ahankara. And ahankara impels us to gossip, complain, find faults and mistakes in others. That's all related to criticism. Okay, and some more review points for that. Why do people criticize? Remember, you guys, the reason why? When they're feeling inferior, like low self-esteem, right? So the quickest and easiest way is to smash someone else down, even if you're doing it in your head. And if you have people who agree with you, it feels even better. I mean, you can just do it in your head, but if you talk to someone else and they're like, yes, she's like that or he's like that, then you ratchet up even faster, you know? So that's the reason why people criticize, this low self-esteem and feeling inferior. And then remember what inferiority is? This feeling of unworthiness, this feeling of worthlessness, of inadequacy, right? So criticism, we can think of it like a coping mechanism, right? Used when people are feeling unworthy. So that can give you compassion for people when they are criticizing, right? To think, okay, that person's not feeling very good about themselves for some reason. And then I was talking about indiscriminate criticism, right? So the more insecure we feel, the more desperate we come to criticize. So we'll just criticize on anything. And the example I gave is if you were like, imagine like you're like falling down, like just imagine off a mountain or something or down the stairs, you just grab onto anything not to fall. So that's how desperate the criticism gets. It's just like, the example I gave was like, oh, he's wearing a gray scarf. Hideous, you know, but really you're jealous because he's better at Sanskrit than you. Oops. I think it's Dowji's computer. Okay, and then we talked about inferiority complex, right? If you regularly feel bad about yourself when you compare yourself to others, and it's interfering with your life, then you might have an inferiority complex. So that's the extreme of feeling inferior. Most people don't have that. But if it's to the point where you can't function, where you're creating a lot of problems with other people, or where you yourself cannot do what you need to do to be successful in your life, maybe you have that. So that's the extreme end of inferiority. And so then I talked at the end, remember, about ways to respond to criticism, like don't take it personally, take pause, right? Try to get calm and clear. That's hard to do in the moment. So maybe you have to say, like, let me get back to you, you know, and then come back. It's very hard in the moment to take pause. You just want to fire back so fast, right? Become like a rock, you know, because sometimes when people are criticizing, not at all times, but sometimes they're looking to get an emotional response from you and then they feel satisfied.
It's like the Indians trying to make you angry. When you get angry, that's very happy.
So it's oftentimes, it's not satisfying if you give criticism to a rock. I don't know if anybody's ever tried that, right? If you went out into to the woods and you're just like, you suck, you're ugly, I hate you, you're stupid. Like it's not satisfying, right?
Thank you for blessing me.
But when you do it to another person, it's satisfying when you see them either fire back with something and then the game is on. You know, who can criticize more? Or you see them feel bad, and maybe they feel bad, and that's like, yes, I'm up now, I won, you know? So that idea, it's very hard to do. You have to have a very stable and calm mind, at least in that moment, to not respond, you know, and just be like the rock. Or you can flex your empathy muscles. It's very hard to do in the moment, but realize, okay, this person is triggered, that's why they're doing it. Because if somebody's not triggered, if they're in a happy, loving, kind mood, they feel secure, they're not going to do that. So they're feeling bad, but it doesn't come out like that. Criticism comes across like they're strong and they're powerful and they're feeling really good, but they're not. It just looks like that. Another way is to introspect, like just see, okay, thank you for the feedback. Maybe 1% is true, but maybe there's one grain of truth in there, you know? And the example I was saying is if somebody's telling you this, most likely 7 other people also think that. but they're not bold enough to tell you that, right? So you could be like, okay, this is something I didn't know, and maybe I don't even agree with, but that's how people see me. So maybe I should do something about that. If I want to be successful in my relationships in this community or in this family or in this workplace, And then the last thing is you could try to cultivate gratitude, right? For that same point. Like, okay, this person was, either they were triggered enough to just blast me and tell me, or they were compassionate enough to tell me because they're looking out for my best interest. So there's lots of ways to think about it, but the hardest thing is to have a calm mind. That's why I was spending time on sattvasizing the senses. Because if you can get your mind into sattva, it's easier, but it's hard to keep it there. I know. Okay? So then, look at how many ahankara characteristics we've done. We've done a lot, you guys. Criticizes others, praises self, insensitive, hates, loves, and today we're going to do competitive. Competitive. Vilas is already like, ooh, what's coming in this one? Okay, see this cat? He's like, game on, I don't care. What are we doing? I'm going to beat you. So the definition of competitive, wanting very much to win or to be more successful and better than other people. You can see how that relates to ahankara, right? Because ahankara already thinks that it's number one. It already thinks it's the best. So it loves a good competition. If it wins, it just loves it. Just like, yes, that validates that I'm right, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm whatever it is, I'm faster, I'm more athletic. It doesn't matter the thing, but as long as it's me and I'm better than you, And then you see how the guy, it looks like he either stole the trophy from him or hit him on the head with it or something, right? But somehow that feels so good. Not only that he won, but the other guy lost. And look at the other guy. And so that guy is at home probably dancing about it. He's probably going to tell the story to his whole family. Guess what? I won, but look at this loser. He fell down. He was so depressed. And that makes the win feel so much better. I don't know if any of you guys have ever played competitive sports, But when the other team loses, at least, back in the years when I played, the kids are mean. They're like, loser, you lost. They're singing songs about being a loser. Nowadays that would not be acceptable, right? But back then, it was it felt so good, to look at the losers and be like, winners, losers, So that's the ahankara. Look at the definition, wanting very much to win or just be more successful and better than other people. And that's it's not even like a program, it's not even like a samskara, it's the ahankara, which is that just comes with the packaging of ahankara, Okay, so the psychology of competition, why do people compete? So you guys already know this, but just to summarize, 1, to make others feel inferior. 2, because of low self-esteem. 3, to beat someone so they can feel superior. But it gets wrapped up in different cultures like, no, it's just fun. But I'm telling you, it's not fun if you lose. And that's why I'm saying, if you're like, no, that's not true for me, I just love to play. It's like, okay, but would you love to play if you kept losing? No, you wouldn't love to play if you kept losing, right? So then that means your ahankara wants to win and wants to see someone feel inferior, Okay. So did you know that competitiveness flourishes in small group settings? This is a very interesting psychological point. They've done a lot of research on this. So in small group settings, like a classroom, a workplace, like a family, like a spiritual community, not a big one, but a small one, right? What happens is, if the group is too big, just say you're in a spiritual community or a family with 100 people, it's too hard to think you could win. You could be the best. But when there's 10 or 20 people or 30, you can suss out the room and be like, loser, 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 I'm better. All right, I got this thing covered, So the ahankara loves small settings. That's when the game is on. That's when the competition is very fierce, When it becomes too many, too big, too many people, then the ahankara is like, it's too hard to win, this one. Isn't that interesting? So, if the odds become diminished, being number one, then ahankara is not going to fight as hard. But if it's small enough, the ahankara is like, yeah. It triggers all the competitive juices to just go for it, and smash the other people down. Okay, and the reason why is the ahankara wants to stand out from the crowd as number one. That's one of the things that ahankara loves to do, to be seen as number one, just brilliant and, shining bright as the only one. Here's some ingredients required for what I call a toxic competition. Here's the perfect storm. Okay, externally, you take a small group of people, You take a limited resource, like just one authority figure, like one parent. There's one mom and 10 kids. There's one teacher and a bunch of students. There's one guru and a bunch of disciples. There's only one, and everybody's vying for that person's attention, right? And then you take a culture where people are not told directly what their problems are, because nobody would hang around for that. Nobody wants to hear it. So then you're in a community which is most of every culture. You're not going to be like, you have this problem, right? So you don't know what your problems are, and you are supposed to figure it out yourself through hearing indirectly a lecture. And you're supposed to be like, oh, I have that problem, So the reason why, and then you're supposed to change yourself. And the reason why that's difficult is we often can't see what the problem is, because the very nature of ahankara is it blocks you from seeing your problem. So you take that externally going on. And then internally, because of ahankara, we can't see our own mind. We're blind to our own jealousy, our own hurtful behavior. Because, if you're in a family, just say, well, you're not supposed to talk like that and say, that hurt me. Or you're not supposed to express anger, You're not, and you're supposed to let the person figure it out on their own. How's it ever going to get figured out? Because you don't give the feedback. Or the other person can't take the feedback. Or they'll run away if you tell them the feedback. Or you'll have strained relations so you don't tell the feedback, So then the onus is on that person to figure it out, but the person doesn't think they have a problem. So this is a very toxic situation. I call it the perfect storm, because it's very hard to get what the lecture is or what the teachings are and relate it to you. It's easy to be like, oh, I can see that person has it. But to relate it, and then if you relate it to yourself, how do you know if you're even changing it in a way if you don't have any person who you're checking with? You're checking with yourself, your own samskaras, and your own ahankara is like, okay, I got it now, I'm not doing it. But it's such a very, very difficult situation. And I'm just painting the picture clearly because I think it's important to see what the situation is. You have an external situation that I described where you're not being told directly the problem that you have, anybody, and unless you can think of a situation where it's like that. It's very rare. Even if you ask somebody, tell me my problem, they're probably not going to tell you. It's going to ruin probably a relationship if you say it. So then you have to figure it out yourself, but because of the ahankara, we can't see it. Plus, on top of that, most people lack some sort of this compassion and empathy that I've described, right? Why? Because your mother didn't give it to you. So you don't have the empathy for yourself. You don't have the empathy for other people. You can't see what the samskaras are that you're doing that are causing you and your ahankara to act in certain ways that are hurtful, and you feel inferior. So on top of that, you act in ways to make yourself feel superior. And everybody has unhealed childhood wounds, which they also either don't see or don't want to work on. So I'm painting a very, I think realistic picture. Bleak, but realistic, because if somebody doesn't say it, the easiest way for me to say it is using this situation. Because to go up and say it to people, that's very hurtful. And nobody wants to hear it, not even in therapy. If I sit down with a client and say, here's your problems here, not that I don't see them, but if I say it, everybody's going to have no clients. So even when I try, it's very hurtful. So that's why I'm saying the onus is on us to actually really say, okay, what the messages that at least I'm giving are very clear and very direct, and they're not random. They are for the people who are listening, And so I think oftentimes it's like, oh no, and it's taken casually. I'm also saying it with more urgency because I'm only teaching a few more classes and I'm taking 6 months off. So hopefully these messages can go deeper in, and you can use them, for yourself in a way, especially over the 6 months off, to use them and really think about what these things are and how they apply to you. One idea is also to get a partner, like I suggested before, work with somebody deeply on them, because it will help you a lot if you're courageous enough to look and apply them to yourself. Okay, so 10 signs a friend is secretly competing with you. Here we go. No empathy for your misfortune. So this guy got fired, right? When you share your bad news, they do not feel bad for you. In fact, they seem to take delight in hearing that something didn't work out for you. Have you ever had a friend like that? Friend, right? Where you share something bad that happened and they're like, oh, they're like, they actually don't feel any empathy at all for you. And they may even give you a lecture. I knew you were going to get fired. You kept going late to work. It's like, is that the appropriate time to give a lecture to me when I'm feeling horrible? I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I don't have any income now. I have to pack all my stuff up. And they give you a lecture. That's actually a sign of no empathy, right? And that's also a sign of secretly kind of competing with you, feeling happy actually, in some level. Like, okay, I was already feeling bad about myself, but the fact that you got fired, I feel better now that I'm just a homemaker or whatever. Maybe that was the issue. It's like 2 sisters and one's at home with the kids and the other sister has a good job, just say. That one sister secretly feels probably a little bit jealous that her sister has a successful career or job. So when the sister gets fired, she's like, oh, it makes her feel good, actually. These are the bitter truths about the ahankara. They copy you. So imitation might be the highest form of flattery, but a friend who's in competition with you has ulterior motives actually to bring you down. So it could be like, no. They just, they're like, I had one sister that always did that to me. Whatever I would do, she would do. She was 2 years younger and it drove me crazy. She was always copying me, If she wanted to have the same friends as me, she wanted to wear the same clothes as me, she wanted to play the same sports as me. And my dad was like, no, she's just, she looks up to you. I'm like, oh. So it's just, it doesn't feel nice being on the receiving end of that, right? And it also doesn't feel nice if you know actually why they're doing it. If they're copying you, they're watching your every move, they're copying you, but they're trying to do it better than you. And they're trying to show, once again, how they're superior. And this is the ahankara story again. It comes out in different ways. So you can think it's like flattery. But if you look at it, why are they really doing it? Like, what would it take to have to copy someone? That means you don't have a very clear sense of yourself. Because we're all so unique and so beautifully unique. To copy someone else means you don't have a clear idea at all who you are and what gifts you're bringing to the world. So you have to look around and find somebody who looks like they're happy and then try to copy them. And then ultimately you're going to try to be better than them at that, unfortunately, because that's what ahankara makes you want to do. If you look at it closely, if you've ever done it before, if ever anybody's done it to you, you can see that that's actually what it is. That's the mechanism that's happening. They don't celebrate your successes. Have you guys heard of this term called a frienemy? It's an enemy who acts like a friend. So a frienemy, that's what they call it. A frienemy is a person who pretends to be your friend, but despite having a fundamental dislike of you. So they'll say like all nice sweet words. They say, oh yeah, I'm so happy for you, or whatever else. Or they'll say something nice, but actually you can tell by their behavior, they're not your friend. They're jealous of you. They're competing with you. They're critical of you. But to your face, they say the nice stuff. So a frenemy views you as his competition and will always have an excuse to why he's not available to celebrate whatever your successes are. They're not going to show up for you. They're not going to show up to support whatever's important in your life. They will not like your posts. They will not, they're allergic to your success, basically. Their ahankara is allergic to your success. It's like, oh, I can't take it. So they might say something nice in passing just to be polite, but basically, if you watch their behavior, they're not doing things to support you. They're not with you. They use sweet words to your face, but they cannot digest your successes. So they act like sometimes it just never happened. They don't even acknowledge it. You've done some amazing thing in your life that you've worked really hard for. They don't ever once say congratulations or good job or that must have been so hard. Nothing. Just like it never happened. And one way to test it is if you ask them to give you a testimonial and they won't do it. They're saying all this nice stuff. I'm totally with you. Yes. And, just say you're writing a book and you're like, can you write a testimonial for me? Can you. No, they won't do it. So this is a frenemy. Number 4, they downplay your accomplishments. In addition to being absent from your celebratory occasions, right? A secret competitor will always try to downplay your accomplishments. So she's so afraid that you're surpassing her, she cannot bring herself to acknowledge that your accomplishment is good and maybe even better than what she can do. So you might say something like, I did this, I ran this race, or maybe you both are trying to, run a marathon. And then you actually completed the first one and she didn't. She's going to play it down and say, well, that wasn't that hard. That was the New York Marathon. The Boston one's harder because it has a hill in the last mile. She'll always think of something to make yours seem less than. They try to one-up you. This is a favorite game of the ahankara. One-up. Do you know what that means? You say something and they say something better. You say something and they say it better. So this one is saying that what you did is worse, and the other one is saying what they're doing is better. It's just ahankara again. Are you getting sick of the ahankara? It's becoming so tedious when you hear what it's always doing something, trying to make you worse and itself better. So they watch you like a hawk, and then they try to outshine you in everything you do, even if it has nothing to do with their interest or skill set. The main point is they want to beat you. If you share that you wrote a book, they have to chime in and say that they wrote 2 books. If you start teaching, they want to start teaching. If you create an e-course, they start creating e-courses. So whatever it is that you're doing, they're on you, and then they have to do it better than you, more and better, and then tell you about it. Always trying to one-up you, whatever it is. If you're wearing blue, they're going to wear better blue. It doesn't matter. But they've got their eye on you and they have to smash you down. Okay? They also boast about themselves to you. This lady bought a fancy purse, it looks like, and she's showing off to her friend. Right? So they watch you like a hawk and they study you very carefully. Then they try to outshine you in everything you do, right? Even if it has, actually this is the same point. Oh, yeah, excuse me. Okay, they always keep an eye on you. You see this? Have you ever feel like somebody's staring at you, watching you and staring at you? It feels very disconcerting when somebody's got their eye on you and they're watching what you're doing. They're watching what you're saying. They're watching what you're wearing or whatever. So it's impossible to compete if you have no idea what the competition is up to, right? So that's what they're doing. That's why they're watching you. They're going to spend time finding out what you're up to. Even if they can't see you, they're going to ask people about you. What is she doing? Or what is he doing? Or where is he going? Why is he doing that? Have you heard anything? They're so curious about what you're doing, because they want to compete with you. But if you don't know what the competitor's doing, then how can you compete? So they're trying to get information, And when you're in their presence, they'll stare at you. They're trying to get any morsel of information they can about you. Okay? They attempt to sabotage your success. These ones are very obvious sabotaging. See the lady's tripping the other lady, and the guy's kicking the guy off the cliff. So it may not be blatant, like she's going to try to convince, but if she does try to sabotage you, which usually they're trying if they're competing, that's the whole idea, right? And so if they can't do it, obviously, they're going to do it in a way to undermine you somehow, but then they're going to say that their actions are harmless. They're going to deny it, right? So something in your gut, though, tells you that they have some ulterior motive, or it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel clean. It doesn't feel like really that what they're saying is true. And a lot of people have a good gut instinct to trust and be like, this doesn't seem right. So sabotage can look like this. It's very simple. Like, just say you're trying to lose weight, and then they bring you 12 donuts. They're like, here, just for you. This is for you. And you're like, yeah, but I'm trying to lose weight. I have a health issue. Why are you bringing me 12 donuts, Or accidentally revealing information about you, personal information you've shared, to your guru, or to one of your god sisters, to somebody very, that you would never want to know that. And then they go, oh, oops, my bad, So that's a way to sabotage you, to make you look bad to others. They also dwell on the negative aspects of your life, right? So they seem to derive some pleasure by constantly reminding you of what's wrong in your life, or some past mistakes you've made that you're trying to let go of. You feel maybe ashamed about something, you feel embarrassed, or that's a low point in your life, you've known them for a while, and then they keep telling you, they somehow remind you of that. They keep bringing that up, right? Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody who's your frienemy, your friend, why would your friend remind you of something negative about yourself in your life? Why do you think? You want to give Malati the mic?
I think it's for the same reason, to show that they're superior, that they would never make such a mistake, and just to make it clear that what they do is better than and show how lowly the other person.
Exactly, and think about when it would flare up. If they don't do it all the time, when would that make? It's almost irresistible, and they have to do it. What would trigger them? Just try to get in the psychology of their mind, Vilas. What would trigger them to be like, I have to say it now. I have to just say something to make them, remind them of their mistake.
I think when my ahankara perceives that the other one is better,
exactly.
I think in that moment I have to bring the other down.
Yep, that's right. So if you're already seeing them down, it's kind of like, okay, cool, they're feeling bad today, or they're feeling a little insecure. But if something happens and they start getting better, and you're like, oh, they did something successful, they had a good moment, they're doing well for whatever reason, ahankara just does it in a half a second. There's no actual conscious thinking about it. That's why I'm trying to slow the whole thing down and really put the light on the ahankara and expose it for its bad behavior, so we can see what it's actually doing. Because it's so second nature to us. Number one, in doing it, and number two, in accepting it. Most likely we had adults in our childhood doing these things to us, so it's part of our samskaras. We kind of accept it. But when you put it all together like this, it's like, ooh, this is ugly, right? It's kind of gross. We're not laughing today. Today we're like, ew, can we hurry up and finish this one? Let's go to a good topic, It's not a nice topic. Okay, so your friend kind of wants to talk about the negative things, right? Because they're seeing you're doing well, so they have to pull you down, right? To highlight some of your mistakes from the past. And I call this like an ahankara alert. Your setbacks and obstacles make your friend feel good about herself. That's why she keeps reminding you of your weaknesses and inadequacies. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a friend. It could be a mother. It could be an aunt. It could be a boss. It doesn't have to be a friend. We're just calling it that for now. But you have to broaden the scope and just think of anybody in your life who treats you like this. And they love putting you in their rightful place, which is inferior to her. That's it. They discredit you in front of others. That's another one, right? So has word ever come back to you that she was speaking poorly of you in the presence of others? It's because she's secretly competing with you. That's another sign, They're trying to bring you down in front of others, right? By making you look bad in front of other people, they're trying to make themselves look better. And last week I was also saying, if you bring someone down, like you humiliate them or you say something bad about them in front of others, it has like 10 times the effect. It's embarrassing, it's humiliating, right? To be shamed kind of in front of others. Somebody shows your negative side. Like when I work with parents and their children, I always say, the best samskars you can make are say the good thing about your kid in front of the other parent. Like, so just say I'm working with the child and the child's doing something well in therapy, I'll say to the mom, now when the dad comes in, tell the dad how proud you are that the child did X, Y, or Z. And the child will never forget that. Because like the therapist is listening, the dad's listening, the mom, they're all celebrating. So it's a very good samskara. But the way to have the opposite effect, to really shame somebody, is to bring up something negative about them or embarrassing or bad about them in front of a group of people. Right? It's so humiliating, So that's another way that your frienemy can discredit you or bring you down and make you feel bad about yourself. Okay? So here's the 10 signs of our frenemy, right? That a friend is secretly trying to compete with you. 1, no empathy for your misfortune. 2, they're copying you. 3, they don't celebrate your successes. 4, they downplay your accomplishments. 5, they try to one-up you. 6, they boast about themselves to you. 7, they always try to keep an eye on you. 8, they attempt to sabotage your success. 9, they dwell on the negative aspects of your life. And 10, they discredit you in front of others. So one thing also that happens, especially I think in spiritual life, is people come here and oftentimes we don't know each other before we arrive. And none of us are coming as an infant. So we all have like decades mostly, at least 20 years of experience before we're coming. And we've had different identities, different successes already before we've come. And then we come here, and then if you come here, and it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, whenever you come, then you're seen only from that point on. So if you come at 50-year-old, you could be a very successful businessman, an executive, but you're not seen as that. You're like, oh, this is a new person. They don't know anything, And so we don't really see the person actually for all of their, on a positive side, all of their strengths. We don't see that. We only see them as like somebody new, But then what happens is if they show some strength, jealousy kicks in right away. It's like, oh, who are they to think, So without understanding that they've lived a whole life before arriving here, and they probably were pretty good at things. All of us were. To even be able to make it to India, you had to do something, right? So that's one of the issues that goes on, is that we're not able to see not only ourselves, but that other people are coming for decades of success of something else, and we don't see that. We only compare them to how we know them now. Like this new person, who doesn't know anything, but actually they do know something, And then on top of that, we all had many past lives that we're bringing with us too. So we have all these vasanas, we have all these samskars from past lives that we're already pretty good at something. But none of that, like if you're jealous or if you're, criticizing or if you're competing, you don't see any of that. It's easier for the ahankara to be like, this is a new person. It's like, yeah, see, they're new. And I know more than them, and it feels so good. Instead of the opposite, which is, oh, this is cool. This is somebody who has had life experience and they've chosen to come here. How can I get to learn about that person? Learn about what they're good at so I can support them, so we can come together as a community and work, hard together with each other's strengths. It's a different way to look at it than this. It's the opposite of this, thinking automatically new person competition. The more people that come, the less time you get with Babaji. That's the way to think if you're possessive, if you're attached to the body, But if you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, like we can all come together as a group, each with our strengths, and work together, it's a whole different mindset, So that's the idea with this. So now let's switch gears into something practical. Okay? So I promise you we're going to talk about giving and receiving feedback, right? Yes?
it's in your book. It's in your book. You quoted Babaji saying we should support each other to support Babaji.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yes.
But it's hard if we don't see this.
It's hard, yes.
It's very hard, and especially if we don't see this stuff in ourselves. If we're just thinking, oh yeah, I know so-and-so's like that, and so-and-so did that to me. So-and-so did 5 of these things to me. It's like, okay, but which things did you do to somebody? It's so hard to see it, So, but that's the goal, but it's nice to have it in our head, but then how it plays out, it really can't play out unless we really see it ourselves. Because Babaji's not going to come around and be like, you're like that, you're like that, you're like that, That's not his goal, So we have to see it. And so these are some introspection tools that are very painful to look at. But if we can be in a loving relationship with each other, we can help to communicate to each other and also to take the feedback ourselves and uplift ourselves, I think it's the only community I've heard of that's doing it this like systematically and seriously, really looking at ahankara for this long and manas for this long, right? So we have an amazing gift from Babaji, a chance to do this, And it's the fact that you guys are all coming every week is wonderful. It shows that you're serious. So I'm not trying to say that you're not taking it seriously. It's wonderful that you're here and you're listening every week because it's hard to hear. The ahankara doesn't like it. It's like shaking after. It's like, when is this thing going to be over? So last week I said we're going to talk about how do you give feedback, especially if it's something negative, right? And then how do you receive it? So I was going to do an exercise that we can practice that because that's not easy. Because part of it might be like, yeah, I want to work on that, but how? How do I work on that? How do I tell somebody that I'm in a relationship with that they did this thing to me? And how do I receive it if somebody tells me that thing, right? So there's many ways, but I'm just going to do a simple one. We're not going to get it all in one class, but I'm just going to give a simple one for us to try, okay? So for giving feedback, the first part of the exercise is always you, So look at these 10 sentences, right? I'll go back here in just a second. Oops. Okay, I'm going to go back here, but it's these 10. You can take a picture or whatever. So look at these 10, right? And think of someone who's done one of these things to you in your life. It's not about the person, but just one of these times you've had this experience where somebody didn't celebrate your success or they tried to one-up you. Just one time you can think of. And just write the sentence down, like, they copy me. So you don't have to do it quite yet. I'm just going to go through the steps and then I'll go back, okay? So that's step 1. Then step 2 is write down the sentence that you chose, right? So example, they don't celebrate your success. Then identify 3 of your feelings related to that sentence. So they didn't celebrate my success, so that made me feel hurt, betrayed, and disgusted. Then prepare a statement that includes what the person did and how it made you feel. Okay? For example, when you didn't acknowledge or congratulate me on my new book that got published, I felt hurt, betrayed, and disgusted. It's one sentence. When you did or didn't XYZ, it made me feel 3 feelings. Okay? Some of you have already been practicing this with me, right? So that's the first part of this assignment. All right? And this is the feedback you would give to a person. So think about what that person, somebody who did one of these things to you, and I'm not saying you ever have to give the feedback. It's just practice of how to structure the sentence. One of these 10 things. And you might not even want to word it this way. You might not say, like, when you tried to one-up me. Because they'll be like, I didn't one-up you. I was just sharing my thing too. So you have to think of how you'd word it so it's not, the ahankara might not get triggered, So when something related to one of these things, but you might want to word it in a way that the ahankara might hear it. It made me feel 3 feeling words. Daoji, you're typing so fast. You're writing a book over there. It's like smoke is coming off that keyboard.
Joshika, can you please put the other slide with the exercise again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So point 4 is how the sentence should be structured. When you, whatever point you've chose on point 10, it made me feel 1, 2, 3 feeling words. And feeling words are just one word, right? Like scared, angry, frustrated, unloved. And if you are listening online, you can just Google a feelings wheel if you don't have one. On Google they have lots of different choices to find 3 feelings. Anybody need more time? Everybody got something? No? Here's the examples again. Does anybody else need a piece of paper? Or a pen? Yeah, sure. That's a misfortune. Yeah. When you had no empathy for me when I was feeling low, it made me feel 3 feelings. Everybody got something? Okay. So here's some guidelines for giving constructive criticism. So imagine you were going to tell that person. I'm not saying you should or you would, but just in your head thinking if you were going to give it, right? Number 1, you start with I feel statements, right? So that's why I said, like, I feel. You can also reverse it. I feel hurt, betrayed, or sad, or whatever, when you can put it the second half, But the main point is you're using I feel. You're sticking on the feelings, not on how bad of a person they are, I feel is like the thing, especially if you say 3, that's good. Because then it's more about I feel. And your feelings can't be wrong. Your feelings can't be wrong. That's the good news. You can feel whatever you want to feel. They may not like it that you feel angry at them or that you feel betrayed, but that's better than saying you're a jerk. You're a colossal a-hole. It's right? So just saying I feel, it already de-escalates it. It's my feelings. This is my experience of feelings. I think is a whole different story. That's when the fights start. I think. You think that? Oh, really? Well, I think that. And then you just start attacking. But I feel, nobody can tell you that your feelings are wrong. They can, but yeah, you can be like, no, sorry, I'm allowed to have my feelings. Okay, so that's why we use I feel. The second thing is avoid you are. Like, you're this, and you're that, and you're that. And then as soon as you do that, they're not going to hear anything else you're going to say. So I feel when you did, and then the third point I'm making is be very specific. Not when you always bring up my downsides, Or what was it? When you always bring up my negative aspects. Yeah. When you always bring up my negative aspects, I feel angry. No, they don't always do it. Actually, they do a lot of other things that are probably nice. So don't say always and don't say never. Then all of a sudden the party's over. They're not going to listen to you. But if you say, on Tuesday, when we were talking, I felt hurt and betrayed and whatever because you brought up my negative aspects. Then they might be able to hear that. I'm not saying they will, but you have a better chance if it's specific to one incident. But typically what happens in relationships is we let things pile up and pile up and pile up, and then we explode. And we blast them from the last 5 years of everything you ever did to me. And that's why you're a horrible person. You know, it doesn't work. You know how it feels either when you blow your top and do it, or you know how it feels when somebody does it to you. It feels horrible, right? So this is an idea like when the pressure cooker is building up, to let the gas off a little by doing this. You know, and I didn't put a slide here, but one also good thing is to ask them, instead of in passing when you're just walking by, instead be like, hey, can we meet tomorrow? I want to talk to you about something. You know, there's an interaction we had. So they're already prepped. Like, oh, we're talking about something that probably you're upset about. Then they're prepared. Then they don't think we're meeting for lunch. They think, oh, there's something, this person's already upset. Then maybe even they start thinking, but at least they're prepared so they're not caught off guard. You know, and then you sit down and you say, I have about, half an hour. Is that good for you? So these are setting boundaries already. Do you have a half an hour? No, I have 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. And if you don't think you can do it in 15, then you say, I need more than that. Can we reschedule? Or whatever. But you try to set the boundaries nicely. So both parties already agree we're going to have a conversation. It's about something that happened between us. And we'll probably do it in about half an hour. And you can even say, I want to say something, but I also want to hear what you have to say. You can even say, I'm practicing a communication technique. I may not be great at it yet. Like, please be patient with me. I'm trying, or something like that. Then these are all nice ways to set the...
Can we say ground rules rather than boundaries?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can say, here's some ground rules that work for me. Do you want to share any that might work for you? Have you ever done this kind of thing before with somebody? It's kind of new for me. I'm practicing, something like that. So then already they're not like caught off guard what's happening, and they're like, okay, I get it. We're practicing a communication technique, And oftentimes when you do it, because you're new at it, maybe, some of you, then it will be either too harsh, and you're like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Or it'll be too soft, and they don't get it. They're like, wait, what do you mean? So it takes a little while to refine your craft, so you're like kind of in the middle with it, So you can also say that. I might be saying it too harsh, but it's really out of love, I'm just trying to express it. Or I might be saying it like too soft, and maybe you don't get my point. So please bear with me as I try, So then the final thing is, when you present your point, present it like an observation. Like how I've experienced this, or how I've observed this, is that you're like, you weren't empathetic to me, when I was having a low point, something like that. And that made me feel sad, rejected, and lonely. That way you leave it so it's not black and white, like, you were not empathetic to me, and you've been doing this for months, and I hate it, and you're so rude, and you're such a jerk. Who's going to listen to that? But if you're like, how I experienced it, and I could be off, like, give them the benefit of the doubt. I could be off, I don't know, this is how I experienced. So you leave it like more soft. So then they can come back and go, actually, okay, thank you for telling me. And then we'll get into how you respond to it too. But that's the idea. So it's not black and white. Okay? So here's how to receive the criticism when it comes. All right? Number 1, take a deep breath and ground yourself. And when you receive criticism, you want to feel in control. So one way to feel in control, like I said, is if they haven't booked in advance with you and done it, and if it feels like you're being thrown off guard, you can go, okay, I really want to hear you, but I wasn't prepared for this, I wasn't ready for this, and I'm already feeling triggered. Can I have a day? Or something. So you want to feel not thrown off and not attacked. You want to feel like you also can, and you could say, could we just email about what the point is in advance and agree to the parameters up front on the email and meet tomorrow? Because you want to come with a cool head. And if the other person has prepared and you're not, it feels very disorienting, and then you might just snap, and then you might be regretful for what you said, right? So you can also say, okay, if they're coming to you, but if you know it's going to happen, you've agreed Tuesday at 2, then you say, okay, and you still take your deep breath, ground yourself, think, okay, this is a really cool opportunity because we've agreed to this in advance, and both of us are trying to grow and change and learn how to express. So you can be grateful for the opportunity. And then you can listen closely. And this is usually when somebody's starting to criticize, the first sentence that comes out, we're already preparing our response, right? It's like, no, well, you, and you, and you. And so then we miss everything else they're saying. So try to make a promise to yourself, I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to try to have my response yet. I just want to hear what they have to say. Maybe you don't even make your response in that meeting. Maybe you just ask them more questions and say, I really want to hear your experience. We're God sisters. God brothers, or somehow we're family, we're related. So I want to know your heart. So just talk to me and let me ask questions and let me really understand you. And maybe tomorrow we can meet and I can give you my response. That's what I do when I work with people in therapy. I don't do them both on the same call unless they convince me. But usually I say I like to do separate calls where one person gets the whole hour to talk and the other listens, and the other one then chews on it and comes back, and then the other one talks. It feels very nice when you're heard like that and you don't have to make a response in the moment. Then you can take notes and come back and think about it, and if something's really triggering, you can nurture yourself, cool down, and come back with how you want to respond. Okay? So then when they're giving the feedback, you want to say thank you very much for this opportunity to learn more about their feelings, right? And to practice kind of this healthy communication technique. And then you just want to repeat back what you heard them say. For example, so what I heard you say, that sounds so nice. It just is like music to the ears. When you're like, oh, so what I heard you say, it feels so good. It's like, oh, you were listening? Because we don't usually use that in our communication. So if you say, what I heard you say, it's like, oh, yes, was that you felt hurt. You felt betrayed and disgusted because I did not acknowledge nor celebrate you when your book got published. So you're just literally saying back exactly what they said. You are not trying to show how smart you are. And is it because your mother didn't acknowledge you, and so that's why we're not analyzing their samskara, we're not analyzing their ahankara, we're not summarizing. It feels really not nice when somebody tries to summarize it because they used the wrong words and they didn't capture it. You're not trying to capture the essence. You're literally trying to be like the recorder, like a recorder in your brain, and say the exact words. And the more exact you can be with the words, the more the person feels heard. But when you do the exercise, it feels weird. You're like, I feel like a parrot. I'm just like saying the same thing back. I feel like a parrot. Like it doesn't feel like I'm being effective at all. But then I always ask the other person, how did you feel? And they're like, oh, I felt so good. It's the first time in my 10-year relationship I felt heard. So on the receiving end, it feels very wonderful to be heard like that. Okay, and so then once you've said what you said back, then you say, okay, now did I get that right? Did I understand your point correctly? Right? And then would you like to add anything to that? Because hearing it back makes you sometimes want to add something. Okay? And then you go on to their feelings. So they've listed 3 feelings. So just pick one that you're interested in. So you'd be like, betrayed. I didn't realize you felt betrayed. What made you feel betrayed? Tell me more about that feeling of betrayed. And try to strike from the record the word why. When you say why, immediately it puts the person on the defensive. I call it like a curse word, So if you say, why did you feel betrayed? It's like, why did I feel betrayed? I don't even want to talk to you. Get out of here. But if you say, oh, interesting, betrayed. Tell me more about that. As soon as tell me more, it's like, oh, I've just been waiting to tell you, It's such an opening of the heart when you say, tell me more, I want to hear more. And then just let them talk. And they're probably going to be triggering to you. You did this and you did that, and it's because you were like that. Okay, so I'm like that, Yep, you're like that. Okay. So, it's an exercise on your ahankara and keeping it, kind of more humble and just listening to how they see it. Because they're not going to talk like that for 5 hours. It's something like a poison or a venom that has to come out, and you can hear it. And to the extent that they're maybe attacking you is to the extent that they're hurt. It's like a wounded animal that you try to touch its broken leg and it wants to bite. So that's a sign that they're hurt. So it's like a healing balm for you to listen. Not to the extent that they're cursing at you or something, but if they're just, and you did this and that, okay, so I did this and I did that, tell me more. And I didn't understand, so I didn't realize it, okay, I didn't realize it had that, how that made you feel. So you just try to listen the best you can and keep repeating back parts of it to make sure you understand it. And then this is the hardest part, is taking responsibility for your part of it, right? But you don't want to do it in a fake way. So you don't want to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that, if really you don't feel sorry. So that's why, to the extent that you can probe on the feelings, you're just looking for some place where you can overlap with your hearts. So just say 90% of what they said you do not agree with. You're like, no, they're totally triggered. There's some scars, they don't get it. But there's 10%, which is usually their feelings, not their storyline, but their feelings, that they feel betrayed. That part you can go, oh wow, okay, I'm so sorry. I had no intention to make you feel betrayed. So here's the example. I'm very sorry that I made you feel betrayed because I didn't acknowledge or celebrate when your book got published. I was so absorbed in my work that I didn't take time to congratulate you. And honestly speaking, I was a bit jealous. But I don't want to feel jealous of you. I have to work on that. Please forgive me. What you did was really wonderful, and I'm sorry for not being a better friend to you. Do you see how that feels so honest? It feels honest, you know? There's nobody who's beyond jealousy. So just admitting, like, my jealousy kind of blocked me because I wanted to publish a book too. That's on my list and I didn't get to do one yet, or something like that, you know? Fine, good, we can laugh about it, you know? But if you just do some insincere apology just to make it better because you're trying to practice healthy communication, it doesn't feel, you know when somebody does a sincere one and you know when somebody doesn't, right? And you also know when you give a sincere one, how it feels when you really own your part. Because there's some part of you that's like your lower nature, we could say, that made you act in that way. You know, so instead of, oftentimes if we do an apology, we're like, I'm sorry you feel angry. How is that an apology? I'm sorry that you feel angry? Do you see how we've, the ahankara perfectly preserved us as never, you know, I'm sorry you feel angry. It's like, no, you did something to cause me to feel angry. Can you take any responsibility? So a good apology is, I'm sorry that my actions caused the anger in you. You know, this specific action. And by the way, here's why. You know, part of it is I was absorbed in my work. The other part is I was a little bit jealous. And maybe I didn't even realize it until I thought about it. Until you told me that it hurt you. And I realized, oh, but you are my friend. And I didn't mean to do that to you. Actually, I was a little bit jealous. So you see how that feels more sincere on both sides, right? Okay, so now let's practice. Okay? So what I want to do is if one person wants to just share your sentence, and then we could practice, if you were the one receiving this feedback, how would you respond? So if somebody has their sentence, they just read it out loud. You don't have to come in the hot seat. You just read aloud your sentence, right? And then we all can just take turns on how we would respond to that. But the sentence you're reading, just say you're going to respond. You're responding like she's telling you that you did that thing. Do you get it? So if Janava's like, I felt betrayed because you weren't there for me, to Malika, then you would act like you really weren't there for her, like she's telling you that feedback. And then you try to practice these steps, you know, to listen and say it back. You don't have to do it perfectly, but that's the idea, so we can practice as a group and hear each other. I think you guys can learn a lot from hearing each other like we did last week, right? It was a short exercise, but I think a lot of people got something out of it, hearing it live, you know, experiencing it. So, who wants to read a sentence? Narottam? Thank you for being so brave, Narottam. 2 mics. Janava was like, I'm not doing it. You do it this week.
So the sign of a friend competitor that I chose was he doesn't celebrate our success.
Okay.
When you said that my new job at the XYZ company was actually nothing else but a material endeavor, and that it was even contrary to bhakti, I felt humiliated, unseen, and minimized.
Aww. Okay. You guys heard it? So if you're responding, you're going to respond like you're the one who did that to Narottam, okay? Good job, Narottam. Thank you. So now, so what you want to do is take a deep breath if you're going to respond. Pretend like you said that to him, and you've listened to what he said. You can also ask him to repeat. Oftentimes you can say, I didn't quite catch it. Let me try to hear that again. Say it one more time. And then you want to repeat back what he said. And then you want to ask about his feelings. We can do it together. We can do one step at a time maybe, instead of one person doing it all. Does somebody want to do the first step? Go ahead, Vilas.
So, Narottamji, I heard you say that when you got the new job at this company, then, and I didn't acknowledge your success, then you felt, and when I said that this is just a material endeavor, and this is even contrary to bhakti, then you felt betrayed and hurt, and I'm not sure, and you said also something else, I didn't catch it, could you correct me please?
Get the mic.
Yeah, I felt humiliated, unseen and minimized.
Okay, so when I did not acknowledge your success of getting the new job, then you felt humiliated, minimized, and what was the third thing?
Good job.
Unseen.
Good job,
Unseen.
Vilas. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, you felt minimized, unseen, and humiliated when I did not acknowledge your new job.
Yes.
And also there's one part, you want to say, did I get it right? Did
Okay.
yeah.
Now, did I get it right?
Yes, exactly. Although I didn't say that you hadn't acknowledged my new position, but it was implied.
Okay, but okay, what I did is I criticized your new position and said that this is contrary to bhakti and that this is a material endeavor.
Yes, exactly.
Very good.
You got it right.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Very good. That's the first step. Good. Okay, so how did that feel, Narottam, to go through that with Vilas, clarifying until he got it? How did it feel?
Although it was an invented example, I just copy-pasted from a real life experience, but in different circumstances. But when Vilasa was, although from the very beginning he didn't remember exactly what I had said, but then he made an effort and then he tried to remember, and then I felt, oh, he even, maybe he doesn't remember exactly, but he was trying to remember, and he made an effort, and then again and again, and finally he got it right. So example is fictitious, but then I felt, well, it's some special feeling that a person makes an effort to understand you, and also to really feel what has happened and what the way I express myself.
Very good. So the fact that he was trying, and it probably felt good when he's like, I can't remember. You're like, oh, good, let me tell you, right? It felt good when because oftentimes our own ahankara, we want to be perfect and be like, no, I got it. It's this, this, and this. And it's like, no, but don't make it up if you didn't get it. If you don't know, you have to be humble. That's an act of humility to be like, oops, I can't remember, and then to say it again. Oops, I'm sorry, I only got 2, I can't remember the third. That's good. That means you're trying to hear the person. And he felt better when you did that, Vilas. You know, our ahankara would make us think the opposite, that we're looking stupid or we look like we don't care. But actually he felt better when he was like, oh, he's trying so hard and he cares. He cares to know the exact words I used. Beautiful. Very good. Okay, so what's the next step? So you repeated back. Now let's give someone else a try to respond to Narottam for the next part. Okay, so the next step is asking about the feelings. So Tanvi, go ahead and ask Narottam. Narottam, can you see her at all? Or I don't know how to see her, but can you see her on Zoom or anything? Or?
I'm not connected, but I can.
Okay, it's okay. All right, just go ahead, Tanvi. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Narottam, please tell me more about your feeling of humiliation.
Good, Tanvi, perfect. Tell me more.
This job was a result of many efforts, and I really wanted to get it, and I also wanted to share this happiness with you as my friend. But then you dismissed this, you just neglected this whole moment of happiness, and on top of that you denigrated me. So that's why I felt myself humiliated, and even guilty for what I have done.
Very good.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry that I made you feel humiliated by what I said, by actually criticizing your effort and your success and playing it down. I'm sure, that you or I can understand that you had expected of a friend something else. You would have liked me to see your success and be happy together with you, as you said. And honestly, I think I was playing it down a bit because I myself am in a situation. I don't have a job right now, so
Bingo.
so I think I was. Yeah, I was playing your success down, and that's why I kind of put it in a light that it's not really, really good and not really great in spiritual life. But when I think about it, actually it is really good, and I also heard Joshika once saying that you can have success in spiritual life also when you have success in material life. I remember that right now. So actually, it is really great what you are doing, and yeah, and actually, I would like to be where you are also.
Bingo!
And yeah, but I'm still on that. I'm still working on that. So yeah, please forgive me for not being there with you and not attuning to you in that moment, actually. And I would like us to be happy together for that. And if you're not too much hurt, maybe we can sit together tomorrow or any time and celebrate it a little bit and have some laddus.
Happy ending to a difficult subject. Good job, Tanvi. Very good. Narottam, you want to tell her back tell her what your response is?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having been so empathetic and also honest and sincere about your feelings, and for having recognized your mistake. And actually, I don't know why, but when Tanvi was speaking, I felt some warmth in the chest, and I felt, can we meet for lunch and just discuss this topic? And by the way, we have another position in my company, and it's open.
See? Did you hear that? She melted your heart, and now you're going to get her a job on top of it. So that's the idea. Good job, you guys. Very beautiful. So that's just a little mini window into what we can do with this, you know? And I would say if you're interested, you could find somebody to practice with over the week. Just try it one time. And if you have a frenemy, probably not, but somebody who's done something that acts like a frenemy, they're not a frenemy, but maybe they did a behavior one time that's like, you could try to meet with that person if you have a relationship and say, hey, can we do that exercise? Can I tell you one thing and you tell me one thing? We practice hearing each other and we clear the air, like Tanvi and Narottam just modeled to us. It's a very powerful experience, you know, when you can get somebody to do that with. So thank you for listening, thank you for coming, and beautiful work, you guys. Good job. Okay, Haribol.